The leaves are vibrant, they're praying, nice, great color. But I just, I could tell that they weren't 100%. And I think I put down like a 3 out of a 5 because they looked healthy, but I just knew that there's so much more that they could be. And then I got the analysis back, and God, I think my Brix level was like 3.6. And I remember taking, actually I had the refractometer, um, right? That's the Brix meter.
Yep.
And I had that at the grow, and I took a sample, and I'm like, man, is this thing broken? Because I've had it before where I've had my plants, um, back when I used to grow, in more of a amended soil and not cocoa, but it was like more of an amended soil. And then I would water with aquaponics water, wastewater, like once a week. And my Brix level was, in the teens, like upper teens sometimes. And I could be wrong, but I feel like I might have hit the in a 20 or something. But I mean, it was like super high Brix. Um, and there was a guy, Doc Bud. He had a high Brix recipe, and I was going off a lot of that. Um, and then I'm looking at my plants that looked almost as healthy, and they're saying like 3, and I'm like, Man, 3? Like, is this thing?" And I had to recalibrate it, and it still read 3. And I'm like, God dang, like, okay, I guess. And then the lab came back and they said 3.6, and I was like, wow, my meter's not broken. My plants just, I'm not doing them justice. Um, and so even now my Brix are low, with this last sap analysis, but the plants are healthier. And to backtrack for a second, you were talking about, a minute ago, pests and whatnot. Um, what I noticed is we had, as you know, fungus gnats. I had you send us your special. I call it your voodoo brew. I'm not sure what do you call it?
The liquid is harmonized, the solids is rejuvenate.
Okay, so it's harmonized, or is
Yep.
that both?
Harmonize is basically a super high biologically content humic acid derived from compost.
Okay.
So that's really what it is. It's just the only problem with harmonize is you have to use it right away or put it right into a brewer because otherwise it just goes anaerobic. There's just such a huge biological oxygen demand.
And I'd watched the episode, and he had fungus gnats, and he said, he tried whatever, it didn't work, and he didn't have time, I think, to get the bugs or whatever, and he contacted you, and you mixed him up a batch, and it got rid of the problem. And so for us, I've got the second bloom room that has a couple trays. It's not at full production right now, and the first one's a full production. And that's the living horizon soil there. And the second room, it's amended cocoa, and it's basically the O horizon in the second room in 5-gallon pots. And we got worms in there, but I would definitely wouldn't. I'm not brave enough to call it a living soil. And so both rooms had the fungus gnats. And then, well, I should say, when the plants are in veg, they all had fungus gnats. And then when we moved the veg plants into the horizontal system, the fungus gnats like fell off. They were still there, but there was not nearly as many when we moved those plants into the horizontal system. And the plants that we moved into the amended cocoa peat in the 5-gallon pots, the fungus gnats just exploded in that room. And then we got your, I'm sorry, what'd you call it again?
Harmonize. I think I sent you the
Harmonized.
liquid, right? Didn't I send you liquid?
Yes.
Yeah, I sent you
Yep.
harmonize.
So the harmonized, then it just, I want to say, I mean, there might be a couple fungus gnats in that room. We've got a trap out for the month now, and there's like 2 fungus gnats on the trap. So, I don't want to jinx myself and say they're all gone, but it's probably as good as you're going to hope for in a room like that. And the other room, it helped the fungus gnats, but it took a lot longer. It took a couple weeks for us to really see the difference. And we put traps out, and they were covered in fungus gnats. And then a week or 2 later, we put out new traps, and there was a lot less fungus gnats. And then now the traps aren't showing as much, but it didn't didn't work as well, and it worked way better in the horizontal system.
Yeah, and the reason why is you have to understand that anytime you're using a soilless medium, you're going to have anaerobic zones on the bottom and hydrophobic zones on the top. And to try to prevent the hydrophobic, you're going to add more water, which is going to compound those fungus gnats over and over and over again. Plus, the understanding of the fact that once you do get those soilless mediums hydrophilic, they're going to slowly release that water back out and just support the fungal gnat populations. So, that's where it's so beneficial to be able to dry back, like what we were talking earlier about Alex. So to have the ability to dry back but not dry out, that's another attribute to the horizontal system is you can dry it back, but it's not going to completely dry out.
Right.
There's going to be moisture being passed as the surface dries out. That moisture will be pulled back up again, but to a degree that's not going to allow those explosive gnat populations to come out. And yeah, it was funny when Shango called me. He was bitching like a motherfucker, and I'm like, dude, I told you when I sent you that rejuvenate that was the cure for that problem. Do you still have any? And he actually did have some, and that's when I said, well, just mix it up with water, bubble it overnight, add a tiny bit of molasses, and apply it, and it works great. It definitely knocks him back. But I could see that in a soilless medium that it would take a lot longer to get the population under control.
And then so you sent us harmonize, and you sent him rejuvenate. What's the difference?
So the rejuvenate is a powder.
Okay.
It's an instant compost tea. So kind of like we used to have the Nest tea, the powder stuff that you threw in your cup of water and stirred it up.